never takes a holiday. As a nurse, Gail O'Neill knows that better than most. Still, she was unprepared for the news that greeted her when she returned home from a late shift 2 days after Christmas 2003.
The minute I opened the door, I saw my husband on the phone, and it was like something hit me in the pit of the stomach, just by his face. And then he said, "Russell's gone."
Gone? Gone where? As far as Gail knew, her son's rocky marriage was on the mend.
And I'm thinking, so is this another drama-filled call from Brenna that they had another argument or something? And what Bob had done is just repeated the words that Brenna had given him, was that Russell had been killed. And then all I could do was just go sit down and just sit there for a while.
Russell's sister Holly got the same call from Russell's wife. She instantly assumed Russell's personal troubles were to blame.
My first thought was that he'd probably committed suicide. So I was in shock and then realized I needed to get over to the island for Brenna and the kids.
An Alaskan bush pilot delivered the news in person to Russell's father, Jim, who was in the wilderness hunting and unreachable by phone.
He said, "Your son's dead." And I had to say, of course, which one. And Russell, and I mean, he didn't know a whole lot about anything other than he knew it was important to get me out of there.
Russell's brother, Matt, was the last to know. He, too, had been out of cell phone range for several days while vacationing in British Columbia.
We drove across the border in our friend's vehicle, and my phone had a seizure. It started buzzing for every voicemail message and text message that had been sent. And it's, "Matt, call me, Matt, call me, Matt, call me."
Within days of his death, Russell Douglas's far-flung family reunited on Whidbey Island.
We rallied around Brenna.
We're sleeping on the floor in the living room.
She stayed in her bedroom a lot. She definitely was like sad.
Nothing seemed to be getting done, and so I kind of ended up taking over the organization of the house. What do we do for meals?
Russell Douglas had left behind a lot of unfinished business. The oldest of 3 children born to Jim and Gail before they divorced, Russell had been a late bloomer. But adulthood intruded early. Shortly after he started dating Brenna, she became pregnant. Marriage and parenthood did little to help him mature.
I think he was mourning and missing being an 18-year-old who had a lot of dates and drank and went out with the guys, and yeah, he did a little of that in college, but not a lot.
Russell and Brenna fought often over children, money, and Russell's affairs with other women.
She had called me after a really rough, supposedly, argument, and I said, "Well, is he hurting you? Is he hitting you?" And she said, "No, really, he isn't physical. It's just emotional and verbal, but I've hit him a couple times."
Earlier that year, Russell had separated from Brenna. He'd taken an apartment near Seattle and had a new girlfriend. For his family, the ongoing drama of Russell's life was exhausting.
He stopped talking to basically all of us. I think he was so angry with the whole situation. He just saying, I'm cutting off everything.
But then, just after Thanksgiving, all that seemed to change. Russell had recently changed jobs and was close to completing an online master's degree program. And as Christmas approached, Russell reached out to family members and told his brother Matt that he wanted to reconcile with his wife.
He said, I think I need to start doing the right things. Brenna wants me back. I want her back. I want to be involved in the kid's life.
Then, for reasons they could not fathom, their son, their big brother, was dead. And the family became defensive when detectives suggested that Russell's wife, Brenna, may have had something to do with his murder.
You don't want to believe that anybody that you've known for that long or is the mother of your grandkids would ever be a suspect.
So Gail offered to help her daughter-in-law hire a lawyer.
One of the detectives seemed a little strong-armed, and I said, you also need to get an attorney for all of your business affairs, so let me see if I can find somebody for you.
The financial picture for Brenna and the children was murky. Russell and Brenna had filed for bankruptcy a few years earlier. And though Brenna owned her own hair salon in this upscale shopping center, Russell had handled the business end of things. If there was a bright spot during those dismal days, it was that Russell Douglas did have some life insurance.
I think when it comes down to it, he had a total of 3 life insurance policies, each one a couple $100,000, I want to say.
In fact, the face value of those policies was more than $500,000. That money would come in handy, particularly since Brenna was under pressure to buy the house she'd been renting from a woman who used to work at her hair salon. The landlady's name was Peggy Thomas. In those last dying days of 2003, Russell Douglas's family had no idea how large that name would loom for them in the months and years to come.
Coming up, detectives get a call from a mystery man who says he knows who the killer is. But getting him to talk won't be easy. It sounds like he's afraid for his own life.
He said, if I told you what I know, the shooter's gonna know that I told you.
When Dateline continues.